Slap Viper.
Pro wrestling is something beautiful. It all anchors on the premise of emotions. No matter what you feel for the wrestlers you deeply care about, you feel for them for many reasons, like today's topic, Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson is an American professional wrestler who has started his career all the way back in 1999. In this 25-year career, he only missed 2 years of active competition due to his first retirement. Bryan has competed in every promotion under the sun, really, and in that time he has been regarded as one of the greatest American professional wrestlers by his peers, fans, and critics alike due to his ability to adapt to seemingly anyone he can get in the ring with and his quality of work. In honor of 600 subscribers, I will rank my top 12 matches of the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, a wrestler I care deeply about. Of course, all these are my opinion. I'm talking about all these wrestlers here today from an in-ring perspective, strictly in-ring perspective. And if you have your favorite Danielson matches, comment them below and why. And we're going to get started with this, but first we are going to name 13 honorable mentions. As you know, this was going to be a top 25 list, but due to time constraints, of course, I would have to write a little piece about everything. I was only able to do 12, so I'm going to name the other 13 here. Bryan Danielson versus Brock Lesnar from Survivor Series 2018. Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Adam Page from January 5th, 2022. Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston from December 27th, 2023. Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia from August 17th, 2022. Bryan Danielson versus Roman Reigns from April 30th, 2021. Bryan Danielson versus AJ Styles from June 8th, 2020. Bryan Danielson versus Jeff Jarrett from August 7th, 2024. Bryan Danielson versus Blue Panther from April 5th, 2024. Bryan Danielson versus Katsuhiko Nakajima from September 20th, 2008. Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. from February 11th, 2024. Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. from October 1st, 2023. Bryan Danielson versus Katsuyori Shibata from March 16th, 2024. And Bryan Danielson versus Samoa Joe from October 2nd, 2024. Now let's get started with the list. Number 12, Bryan Danielson versus John Cena, August 18, 2013. This is one of the greatest SummerSlam matches ever. The parallels between Cena and Bryan and Cena coming from different worlds to reach the mountaintop, and Bryan making it personal by calling Cena a parody of wrestling. A big thing about this match that I noticed and I love about it is how ambiguous both men played each part. There wasn't any traditional face or heel roles within this match, but it was just two of the greatest of their generations battling it out in this sort of dream match for a lot of people. Both men were so intricate with their details and their moves that led to an all-time classic, leading to one of the best matches in WWE history. Number 11, Bryan Danielson versus Dax Harwood, November 30th, 2022. Before any of you try to say anything about why this match is on here, as of recording, this is the only Bryan Danielson match I got to watch live in person, so it holds a lot of value to me. Even taking that out of perspective, both of these men execute this match greatly with stiff strikes and intense grappling between both men, both even brawling into the crowd, both men doing sequences to show just how smart the other person is to try and put each other away. It was a beautiful match, and this is the only match I ever get to see of Bryan Danielson live, then I have no complaints. Number 10, Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay, April 21st, 2024. I don't care what Twitter says, I don't care what any forum says, I don't care what any grifting podcaster has to say. This match was great. Two of the best male wrestlers in North America at the time battling in a clash of the titans, two different styles, two different ideologies, one match, and it comes down to this. Both men hit their best hits on each other, their best counters, their best moves. They do everything to put each other away and prove that they are the best. Every passing minute you thought it would be the end of whatever rabbit, and it would end off of whatever rabbit they pull out of the hat. It was magical to watch live. I was jumping out of my chair. I was screaming. It was intense. And it was that levels of excitement. That knee counter made me scream, and that Tiger driver was just brutal. God, that match is so good. Number 9, Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus, April 29th, 2012. You laugh now. You laugh now. When I tell you this is one of the top 3, 2 out of 3 falls matches for WWE ever, I mean that with 100% sincerity. This was the match after the infamous 18 seconds match at Mania, which WWE tried to right the wrongs of with this beautiful match. This match has Bryan as this sort of this going into this more heelish persona, this sort of deranged heel that he's going to become against a face Sheamus, and Bryan uses the 2 out of 3 fall stipulation to his advantage extremely well by getting himself DQ'd in the first fall to attack Sheamus's arm, and then able to easily beat Sheamus in the second fall because of it. And it was all tied up. The Chicago crowd was on fire for both men. Tense moments and back and forth grit for both men highlighted this match, and just this fall in general. It remains one of my favorite matches of Sheamus's and Bryan Danielson's careers. Number 8, Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, August 12th, 2006. It's the match everyone thinks of when you say Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness. You know exactly why and for what spot. This is Nigel's 3rd attempt to try and take away Bryan Danielson's ROH World Heavyweight Championship, and it's in front of Nigel's home crowd of Liverpool, England. The energy was intense in the arena. This was nearly 30 minutes of everything ROH represents. Both men tried to honor that, honor and go for a clean fight here, but as frustration built and egos flare, both men turned this into a vicious fight. In the closing scene of Bryan knocking out Nigel McGuinness with those elbows make you wince, and it's hard to watch, but it's pure beauty. Number 7, Bryan Danielson versus Takeshi Morishima, August 25th, 2007. Bryan Danielson versus Takeshi Morishima is one of the greatest rivalries to ever happen in American professional wrestling, and this match is a big example of why. Bryan's advantage lies in his quickness and him using that to try and take out Morishima's base. And Morishima, however, he's just too powerful. His size advantage, he's just too big. He's pummeling Danielson, which leads to Danielson's eye injury. But then they proceed to wrestle for another 15 goddamn minutes because Bryan's insane. Bryan and Takeshi just kept beating the piss out of each other. Bryan's crafty work mixed with Takeshi's overwhelming offense puts this up here for me. Number 6, Bryan Danielson versus Chris Hero, September 4th, 2009. 43 goddamn minutes. 2 of my favorite wrestlers ever fought for 43 minutes. It kept the match from being boring. Knowing both guys, it starts out very grappling heavy and trying to size each other up to see how this match is going to play in their favor. Especially from this time period, both men offer some of the best mat work of their era. It's incredible to see. But then those strikes that both men give when they just start to get frustrated with each other, it's pure chaos. It's art. And Hero's work in this match played to Danielson's underdog role perfectly, as Hero promised to concuss Bryan, and with his lethal strikes, it just laid into the American Dragon over and over again. Both men lay it all out here, leading to a sensational match. Number 5, Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland, August 25th, 2024. 17 years to the day Bryan Danielson fought Takeshi Morishima in that absolutely brutal match, one of the most brutal matches in his career. He came out here 17 years later, still swinging, to offer one of the most emotional matches in wrestling history. Bryan's career against Swerve Strickland's AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Swerve is a full-on bastard in this match. The cheating, the taunting. Swerve was the enemy tonight, and Bryan was the hero we needed. If Bryan loses here, He will never wrestle ever again. The shot of Swerve kicking Bryan in the chest, and Bryan, blood covering his face, proclaiming his love to his family. It's a moment that still makes me tear up. The big crescendo of Bryan making Swerve Strickland tap out and celebrate with his family. I cried so much that night, and it's a feeling I will never forget. Number 4, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston, August 7th, 2019. When you become the very thing you swore to destroy, backed by frustration, anger, and wanting to be number one. This is one of the greatest WWE matches ever, and one of the best matches to take place on American soil. Bryan is the heel and Kofi is the face to realize his destiny. Both men were forged by rejection from the higher-ups, by management, despite the fans loving them both, and finally broke through. And in this match, Kofi's passion, power, friendship, and over a decade of being told he just wasn't the guy, he finally won the WWE Championship. Truly just a special match for both men. Number 3, Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston, March 3rd, 2024. From one Kingston to another, one babyface story to the next, Bryan Danielson faces Eddie Kingston for the Triple Crown, which is the ROH Championship, the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Openweight Championship, and the AEW Continental Championship. Bryan has more to prove than usual as he let his guard slip just a few months prior for Eddie Kingston to finally beat him. Bryan is nasty to Eddie, calling him a bum, saying Eddie doesn't deserve his respect. Eddie sold beautifully for Bryan, as Bryan was focused on proving that last loss was nothing more than capturing lightning in a bottle for Eddie Kingston. Bryan's arm work on Eddie was intense, and he kept the pressure on for a very long time. This match wasn't even 20 minutes long, and they kept a great pace with zero wasted motion, with Eddie finally earning Bryan's respect. Number 2, Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, February 23rd, 2008. Nigel's nothing more but a low-life bastard, but he's the biggest hater to ever exist in pro wrestling. Nigel's injuries caught up to him, and he almost wasn't going to wrestle Bryan Danielson to defend his ROH belt. Bryan made a deal saying he wouldn't go after Nigel's head if he did this match. Both men agreed, and Nigel, early into the match, fakes a head injury from a back suplex, and after the ref doesn't do anything to disqualify Bryan, he hits the ref, causing a disqualification. ROH locker room come out to get the match restarted, and Bryan kept to his word the entire match and never attacked Nigel's head. But at the end, Nigel proved just how vile and how much of a bitter, angry asshole he was. He headbutted Bryan over and over again. Seemingly those head injuries and everything like that didn't bother him as much as it normally would, and used Bryan's own elbows to knock him out, and then locked in the London Dungeon to finally beat Bryan. It's the greatest bit of heel work I've ever seen done in a match. It shows that even for how bitter these two were towards each other, Bryan still was a man of his word, but Nigel wasn't. He was willing to do whatever it took to gain any sort of advantage to beat Bryan Danielson. Nigel celebrated this hollow victory, and it was amazing. And number 1, Bryan Danielson versus Takeshi Morishima, December 27th, 2008. My favorite men's match ever. Bryan and Takeshi's rivalry is that of brutality and the lengths each man will go to. Bryan to this point had never pinned or submitted Morishima in a one-on-one match, and this was a fight without honor. Bryan jumping Morishima while the final countdown raged on was perfect. Bryan had everything taken from Morishima, and Bryan was angry and frustrated with nothing to lose, and he wasn't going to stop at any lengths to put down Takeshi Morishima. Weapons were brought in, faces were bloodied, people were thrown, and in the end, the ending, one of the most brutal endings you'll ever see in pro wrestling ever. Bryan just repeatedly stomped on the balls of Takeshi Morishima, chain wrapped around the elbows to the head of Morishima, and finally a catapultation to award Bryan Danielson his only definitive non-disqualification win against Takeshi Morishima. Bryan overcame the monster. Bryan finally put Takeshi Morishima away. And those right there are my top 12 favorite Bryan Danielson matches ever. Thank you all so much for watching. Buy W and use code SlapViperLLC at checkout for 10% off your W order. Donate to my coffee below if you want. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. This is Quincy of SlapViperLLC, and I will talk to you all later. Take care.